The right to vote is the primary right by which other rights are protected. Thomas Paine.
The nasty little secret of American democracy, and we're not supposed to talk about this, is that not all the ballots get counted.
The poll workers watched 100 and some people go in specifically to that booth and vote. At the end of the day, when that tape came out, one person had voted, according to the machine.
People, they should be talking about this, not from the standpoint of you're liberal and you're conservative and, you know, which side of the fence are you on? The issue is, if it was tainted once, it could be tainted again.
It is critical that all qualified voters are able to vote and that all votes are counted as cast. There's growing evidence that eligible citizens are being denied the right to vote, and that votes, when cast, may be lost or miscounted or even deleted. Until recently, most Americans have assumed that our elections are basically honest. But with each election, more and more people are reporting incidents of voter suppression and irregular tallies. At first, machine problems were dismissed as glitches, and difficulties faced by voters were simply the result of poor planning and poll worker error. But as anomalies continued to be uncovered, people began to realize that voting problems, which had seemed in the past to affect only a few states, could be happening nationwide. One of the few mainstream venues exploring controversial election issues has been Comedy Central.
What an honor. Thank you for coming on. Now, you have made quite a stir, sir, with this article of yours in Rolling Stone. You ask with the title of this article, did Bush steal the 2004 election? I'll bite. Did he? My answer's no, but then the interview's over.
Now, in a representative democracy, you want everybody to vote, and you want the majority of voters to try to select the president.
Okay, let me ask you something. Which was easier, for Bush to steal Ohio in 2004, or for your uncle to steal Illinois in 1960?
Let me say something.
You can say anything you want.
Okay. Anybody who steals an election or tries to steal one is wrong, no matter who it is.
American elections have never been administered by saints and angels. All parties historically have stuffed ballot boxes, suppressed votes. Look at the history of the voting rights movement in the South. As recently as the 1960s, people died to get access to the ballot. American elections have been two-fisted political brawls.
When Kennedy beat Nixon in 1960, there was a lot of talk that in Chicago the ballots had been rigged. There's never been any question but that when an election is at hand, a true believer will do what he or she thinks is necessary.
How do we know if an election is fair? One way is to recount paper ballots by hand, or at least audit a given percentage of them. Another way is to use polls and compare the results with the final tallies. In pre-election polls, people are asked how they intend to vote, and in exit polls, how they just voted. The largest gap ever reported in a U.S. presidential election between exit polls based on first-person reports and the official vote tally was in 2004.
2004 election was very problematic. And it wasn't just in one state or one city or one location. It was a national phenomenon. In state after state, exit polls showed totally different outcome than vote counts. It's such an enormous disparity between exit polls, which have always been reliable, and vote count. And instead of coming up with some, real hard look at this, they just assumed that the exit polls were discredited. But why not the vote count?
This is an issue that shouldn't be partisan. This is a people's issue. This is not Republican or Democrat. Everybody at least says they want fair elections.
The election of 2004 is one of the most important, not just in our lives, but in our history.
If there's one thing that we learned from our last presidential election, it's that democracy is far too important to rely on an outdated, error-prone system like punch card ballots. So, as we gear up for the 2004 vote, many communities have moved on to electronic voting, far more high-tech, error-prone system.
As new electronic voting machines were being installed across the country, the parties mounted intensive registration and get-out-the-vote drives.
The bloodhounds of democracy. It is to those bloodhounds and all of the campaign staffers and speechwriters, advance teams, door knockers, phone bankers, and organizers on both sides that I'd like to extend a warm and enthusiastic thank you. You have devoted your time and energy not just to your candidate and your party, but to your country. So for me, a tip of the hat.
One of the fabulous things about this campaign has been the number of volunteers. We have 1.2 million volunteers out. We have 7.5 million people who are e-activists, voluntarily, without being paid, contacting their friends saying, remember to vote.
I and other people went out and we registered voters. Sometimes you just had to beg people. You had to stand there for a half hour and convince them that voting was important. Door to door, every day or every weekend we were out there.
There was always somebody who made sure everybody in their house was registered. Once you cast that vote, you're saying, I'm a part of this.
It was just like this moment of connecting with people, of just a very fundamental job of being a citizen is voting, and we were helping people to do that.
America Votes 2004.
On the calendar, and it is election day. The polls open in this particular location.
A huge number of new voters registered all across the state, north, south, east, and west.
And on election day, we got reports about the many people that were going out to vote. And everybody began to become stakeholders.
The thing that I've been most impressed with all day is the number of young people that are coming out to vote. I mean, from 18 to 22, it's phenomenal how they are coming out in record numbers.
With the caveat, again, that it is early, it appears this election, despite extraordinarily heavy turnout, is going very smoothly.
As you pointed out, Jack says lots of people emailing him saying they're in and out in 10 minutes.
And that's good.
I passed a couple polling places. It was raining, it was cold, and I saw something I'd never seen. I saw long lines of people around the corner waiting to go vote.
And I have been talking to Democrats and Republicans all day. Even though they were predicting record turnout, I think they're really stunned by the lines they're seeing.
More than 120 million registered voters participated in the 2004 general election, the highest number to have ever voted in an election in the United States.
Rivaling a modern benchmark that was set 4 decades ago. But along with the crowd, there have been some complaints from Pennsylvania to Florida and even across the country.
It was a wonderful feeling until we found that there was something wrong. Something was going on that was different.